Hey, Marshall.
Hey, who's that? Oh, hey, how y'all doing? Man, I'm just out here in my hammock, chilling, taking a rest, getting away, enjoying the sights and sounds because, sometimes we got to take a break. Speaking of taking a break, I was thinking about something. If you had a friend that said, hey, I'm basically a good person, but I've murdered a few people the past week. Or, I'm doing all right in my life, but I've been stealing money from work, thousands of dollars actually. Or you thought you knew me, but everything I've told you about myself thus far, it's a lie. Even if you were not a Christian, you wouldn't call yourself a Christian, you would know that if that person said they were a Christian and they were doing those things, they were breaking God's laws, right? And you would say, hey, stop it. This is not right. You're not in line with God. Because we understand that those are part of God's Big Ten, the 10 Commandments, right? Well, you know what? We violate one of those Big Ten Commandments all the time, and we don't say a thing about it. You ever heard of the commandment about keeping the Sabbath? That commandment, if you didn't know, has the most verses in it in all of the 10 Commandments. God goes on for 4 verses about why it's important to honor his Sabbath and take a day off of work a week. And yet we blow right past it. We wouldn't think of blowing right past murder or stealing or lying because there's laws against that. But there's no law against working too hard in America, is there? Nobody's going to throw you in jail if you send that email, or you take time away from your friends and family to do more work, or you don't really ever take a vacation because there's just too much to do for the company. But while it might not violate government laws, violating God's law is not good for our soul. He gives us these laws and these commands for a purpose. And if I'm thinking about it, why would we want to violate the Sabbath commandment anyway? I mean, if God is basically saying, I'm giving you permission, I'm telling you to take time off to rest. You can tell your people, I'm sorry, I cannot work today because I have got to rest myself and God told me to do it. Then why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you take that time, take that rest, and enjoy what God has blessed you with? I think it's because we think we're so important. Tim Keller said that finding peace is relying on God's wisdom and control rather than on our own. And when we don't take a Sabbath, it means I've got to be in control, God. I know how life works best. Everything is all up to me. But there is no more practical way to apply that definition of peace than by taking a weekly Sabbath. Jesus had some things to say about the Sabbath as well. He wanted his people to walk in the goodness of God's rest. And tonight we're going to hang out with him in the Gospels. We're going to see what the purpose of the Sabbath is and why should we consider participating in it. Not just because God commanded it, but because of the purpose behind the command. Tonight as we get started, I want you to think about, are you rested? When's the last time you took 24 hours off from email or text or the demands of work? What keeps you from doing that? And as a discussion starter for the group, I want you to answer the question, if you could go anywhere in the world on vacation, where would you go and why? I would go to New Zealand because I would love to hike through those green hills. I would love to see the waterfalls. And I got to see where they filmed The Lord of the Rings because I'm a super nerd. Where would you like to go on vacation? Thanks again for joining us tonight as we learn about being grounded, finding God's peace in an anxious world. And part of finding peace at work means taking a rest from our work to rest with God.